Welcome into Shaping Reality for August 2025. Can you believe we made it? Everyone, we're rolling into the end of the summer. I'm joined tonight by the fabulous Penny Kelly. You can find her at pennykelly.com. Penny, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. A little bit rushed over the day. It was really a very busy day. I love those kind of days where you have 59 different loose ends that get tied up. And so, yeah, I'm good.
Are you guys busy on the farm this time of the year, or is it wrapping up? How are things in your other life?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the farm has been in a huge, what would I say, all kinds of changes. We've been at this for a while, and we've said, okay, this is working, that's not, this is working, that's not. And so we're starting to weed out the things that don't work as well and play with, what if we did this? What if we shipped? What if we, all kinds of things in terms of possibilities. And so we're looking at all that. That all takes time. And then there's all the bookkeeping and the paperwork associated with both businesses, the farm and me. And then there's phone calls, people call, issues come up. Plus I have family, and I'm on the phone with family, at least one or two of them every day. So there's another little chunk of time, and it's rich. Can I say it that way?
Yeah.
It's rich. Yeah.
Well, I just want to ask a quick question about your community before we launch into, the heavy stuff.
It's not heavy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you noticing in your community people becoming a little bit more aware of being self-sufficient? Like, is it spreading out from what you said?
Our community has, because it's all farmers, they tend to be very much more self-sufficient than other communities are. And there's a growing sense of self, which I love. When somebody wakes up to things that aren't working in their life, it may be, let me see. So one example is maybe you're overweight, or you're looking like you're 70 and you're really only 40, that kind of thing. You become aware of your self-image, and that's happening in my town. And so I think I mentioned a month or two ago that over the last year, last summer, the entire town was shut down, tore out Main Street and redid a sidewalk, street, everything, put in places to walk, places to sit, places to chat, places to go outside and eat, or, whatever. And so planted flowers. So the community awareness of what's our image has changed dramatically. And I have taken that as another sign that we're becoming aware that we intend to get through this time and look good in the process. And I like that. It's like, wow.
I like that too. Wonderful.
Yeah. And there's a sense of I'm going to say cohesiveness that I've noticed. We get a little tiny newspaper. I think it has 3 pages of news. And that is, there's always, the drama stuff that goes on in our county. But there's also been this extraordinary sense of people working together, pulling together. The county fair, we just had the county fair. I was looking at all those young kids displaying their animal, standing there with their big sheep or their big cow or their big pig or whatever it was, knowing that somebody's going to come along and buy that beloved animal and turn it into hamburger or pork chops or bacon, or lamb chops, and knowing what those children are going to go through about the reality of life. It's like, oh, wow. So, yeah, the old traditions have a good foothold here, but everybody's looking out at what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where would you like to start tonight? Are you interested in poking our nose in the look-see, or should we start somewhere else?
I think I want to start with what I've been thinking of lately as the adventure. The adventure that we have been on, kind of like a whitewater rafting trip into new ideas and insights. We've had over the last 6 years a tremendous amount of worry and a feeling of threat, collapse, difficulty, a lot of discouragement, a lot of people not able to navigate the changes very well. And then, you know, all of that worry and feels like entrapment and disappointment, discouragement has to be balanced with some hope and with some excitement and a vision of something new. And so the adventure, we've kind of come through some of the rapids. We still have some more next year. But when you're not all the way down, let's use the Colorado River for an example. When you're not all the way down the river and you've climbed out and you've gone back to your car, your truck, you know that there may be other rough spots ahead. So in the quiet moments, you have to regroup yourself. You have to re-energize your hope and your vision of the future and all of that. And I think we're in one of those periods right now. I hope that's going to last longer than a month. And so I think that the rebalancing is, I'd kind of like that to be a theme for tonight. Where do we stand if something blows up in our face? Have we had enough time to, you know, like, okay, I'm ready for the next run, you know, down the river? If we're not, you know, you might end up out of the boat swimming for everything you're worth. But I think most people right now are in a, okay, and we have passed an initial test. That's a good thing. That initial test is how many of you are going to give up? And not very many people did. Not nearly as many as I thought would give up. And the trip has strengthened a lot of people and hardened a lot of people. That inner rock, I don't know if we've talked, I think we've talked about that inner rock. That inner rock has gotten a little stronger, a little bigger for quite a few people. And we are leaving behind naivete and gaining mastery. How do you master a force like a rogue government? How do you master propaganda? How do you master the threat that, you know, all your money may be worth nothing 6 months from now or 6 days from now or whatever? That kind of mastery, that's big. That's very big, and it's powerful. And there's a kind of power in that I think the powers that want to be are very afraid of. And that's really an important piece. Last night I was talking to JC, and we had talked before we actually got online about the concern of losing individuality being, I don't know, I had a hard time really understanding that whole concern about losing individuality, because you can't lose unless you take a chip, and then you have given over control of your consciousness to somebody else, because consciousness is subject to the frequencies coming at you and your ability to notice, respond, reply, react, etc. And so that whole thing about maintaining individuality, when you maintain in the face of all the challenges that we've had, you get pretty tough. And that is causing a change. I've sensed a shift over the last 2 months that I think is wonderful. Mm-hmm. So people are not having, they're like, no, I don't believe that. I'm not doing that. I'm not going there. I'm not going to cooperate with that, etc.
Yeah. If you didn't see Penny's conversation with JC last night on Beyond Mystic, it's really worth the watch, because the content of that conversation is a little bit different than we've heard Penny talk about recently, and it was really, really good. I'm about 3/4 of the way through, and I know I'm going to watch it again. So the interesting thing for me, and I'm sure that we can take off on this, is you were touching on a shift in the perception of humans.
Yeah.
And what we see and what we perceive and what we feel. And as you were talking about that, I was reminded of the things that I am noticing in my life that are different in the fabric of my reality. And
What are you noticing? What are you noticing?
Well, and that I want to bring that up because I know everyone watching, because this group that's watching, they're kind of the leading edge.
Yeah, they are.
Of this whole shift. And I see this
so brave.
I see the shift kind of happening in stages, because if we all shifted at once, things would get pretty wobbly.
Yeah.
But if some of us, if we kind of, shift in stages,
right.
My perception is that we can hang on to some solidity.
That's right.
Why we are just who we are and how we interact.
That's right. And that first wave is the stabilizing factor for the next wave.
Yes.
And they become stabilizers for the third wave and the fourth, and however many waves there will be.
So I'm going to share the things that I'm noticing, and I'm hoping that those of you watching can either put over in the comments or just make a note of what you're seeing, because I think we're probably all picking up different stuff.
Okay.
The first thing I'm noticing is a dramatic shift in interaction with wild animals.
Oh, yeah.
They're showing up more consistently. They're interacting more. I took my dog for a walk yesterday. There's a 5-point buck sitting in the field just watching us walk by. Just like, hey, what are you doing? So I'm seeing wild animals interact much more openly.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost kind of feel like they're just sort of checking in or talking or something.
They're asking for help when they need it also.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing I notice is things manifest really quick.
Yeah.
Like really quick.
Yeah.
I'm focusing on apricots right now because I love apricots, and I know I'm going to darn well come upon it. Something's going to happen with apricots,
Okay.
And then the other shift is my perception about the story on this planet.
Oh.
And this will kind of connect in with the look-see and your 4 different scenarios about Trump.
Yeah.
And we can definitely go into those, and you can talk about why you bring those up. But my response to that was, what difference does it make?
Oh, you're getting there.
And the reason that I feel that way is my perception now, pretty much based on my time with Max Lowen, is that until a significant portion of us get really clear that this whole planet is not run by our politicians.
That's right.
It's run by a network, and they have bad habits and bad choices and other things that I won't say on this video. It doesn't make any difference what pantomime or what latest drama or what latest story they're creating. None of that makes any difference.
That's true.
It just doesn't.
It's all for show. It's theater.
It's to distract. It's just, and I just hear it as that Charlie Brown, wah, 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 wah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh my. It really is. The show, the theater part of it is interesting in its own right, but it's not the story. That's cover. it's a cover story for all the stuff that's happening in the background that is so not good.
So no.
I know.
And I think JC last night, and those of you who watched it, I'm sure a lot of you did,
Yeah.
made the point that a lot of that drama is them using our energy for their gain,
That's right.
for their outcome. And remember, Penny, when you talked about I think your mentor, one of your mentors,
Mm-hmm.
turned his eyes off.
Oh my God, yes, I remember. Yeah.
I almost visualize us just turning our backs.
Oh, on that whole thing.
Yeah.
When your energy, see, we're not schooled in how energy works. And so we don't really get it. You'll hear stories. Bob Monroe and I used to talk about this before he died. He talked about this stuff called loosh.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I don't know if that's really what it's called, but that's what I understood they were saying. My understanding was, okay, we can use the word loosh, but it's really energy on the loose. And that energy is not directed. It's a side effect of drama. It's a side effect of evil. It's a side effect of excitement or of great joy, etc. There's other energies that get triggered or that start moving. And those energies can be used to drive other things that we are not schooled in. And some of it is, how would I characterize that? It's not relevant. It doesn't matter. It's just loose energy that occurs. But some of it in that loose energy, some of that energy is specific and can be tapped. And that hasn't meant anything to us at this level ever yet. We're not aware yet of energy. We hear some people here talk about the energy body, but they're like, what is that? It's some kind of, okay, it's a body. But they don't really have a good concept of energy and how the whole thing works, what is the nature of reality, and therefore what is the nature of the human. And so that when you have loose energies and you have as much drama as we have going on, it ends up in a war. And we have 2 wars going on right now? One in the Middle East, maybe 2 in the Middle East, and one in Ukraine. When people get caught in war, they end up leaving their body. They get dead. They get killed. When they leave their body, a huge amount of their energy is vulnerable. And so that's a big side effect that's disturbing. That's a very disturbing thing to consider. And the individual really has to struggle in order to heal once they get to the other. So once they're on the other side, if half of their energy has been sucked away, they have to reclaim that or rebuild that. And that's not known. It's not something that we talk about. You have to have had either a near-death experience that involved that. And the symbol of that rebuilding is when you get sent back and you have a seriously injured body. They say you have to go back. You're not done. We will help you. Yes, there will be pain, but you're going back one way or the other. And you have to rebuild that broken body. But what you have in its place is a really strong memory and mind, a really strong concept of who you are now because of that contact with that incredible bliss, love like you have never imagined on the other side. And so you come back to this broken body and you do okay with it. You rebuild, etc. If you don't come back, you go to a healing center on the other side where you have to regather your energy and your whole self-concept. And so, we don't really have a very good idea of what happens after death. The story is you're going to heaven or you're going to hell, and that's it. That's not even close to what, the bliss of the other side is where the heaven idea comes from. And the suffering of the other side is when you take all of your anger, pain, and suffering with you. Then you have to work your way out of that. You do not want to end up taking that crap with you. So, so what we have now on the planet is a whole lot of drama and a whole lot of difficulty and a whole lot of suffering, children especially. And that energy is tapped by others. And there's some other things tapped, blood, body parts. It's ugly. It's ugly. I hate to even, think about it, but we need to know that that's happening, because if we turn a blind eye and pretend it's not. Remember the old story about I'm not sure if it was Jewish people. They said, well, first they came for my neighbor, and then they came for my this, and they came for that, and then they came for me, and there was nobody left to help me. That's what we're up against. So,
and I think it's important to point out that even, the Epstein files are, the latest, one of the latest dramas.
Yeah. True.
He was one of hundreds.
I know. He wasn't there. He could not have done all that by himself. He just happened to get caught.
Yeah. So everything that he was doing is still going on.
Yeah, right.
And all of this, I made the analogy that it's like we're watching a circus.
I know.
The main circus ring, and the ringmaster is shouting louder and louder, and the guy spinning plates is spinning more plates than ever, and the guy juggling is juggling more balls than ever. Right. I mean, the amount of drama and the programming and the repeated rhetoric to try to, MK Ultra the masses, it's almost laughable if it wasn't so covering up something so damaging.
That's my attitude. You fell for that, you believe that, et cetera, et cetera. And if it's not in your experience, and then it's really hard to get your mind around how could that be happening until it's your child that disappears, or your spouse, or your fiance, or whatever. And those kinds of things are still going on. So
I that is something that we have all seen that's pretty persistent in humanity.
Yeah.
The concept that if it doesn't happen to me, it doesn't exist.
I know.
In other words, I cannot imagine it because I have not experienced it. But what we have experienced, just the general humanity who hasn't lost a child to human transporting, and adults with children, and harvesting body fluids, if you haven't experienced that, you have experienced being taxed to death. You have experienced being lied to by your government officials. You have experienced late stage capitalism where corporations no longer treat their customers with grace and dignity, but as they're an annoyance.
I know.
So you have experienced the fallout from all of this. Your government is not your government. Those people are just either blackmailed or given goodies in the form of little 4, 5, 6-year-olds.
Yeah, I know.
In order to keep, them happy and voting the way that the real owners of the planet or rulers of the planet want them
Right.
to.
There have been some spectacular wins in that area, but it still goes on. When they have, I was just reading, it was some amount of children that had been sent somewhere and disappeared. And it was in the thousands. And my thought was, what? More? I can't, it's hard to get your mind around that. And when most people say, no, that can't possibly be happening, what they're really saying is, that has not happened to me or anyone in my family. But the helplessness that I have seen and heard in a few parents whose children disappeared, or whose young daughter, went out on a date, never came home, or I think we saw the tip of that there was a young girl down in Florida, went down with her senior trip to some sort of nightclub down in Florida, or maybe on an island down there, never came back, disappeared, and created all kinds of uproar. All kinds of stories came out around that, trying to pin it on this guy or these couple guys or whatever. And it was all to cover up what they call the coyote work, coyote trafficking. Coyotes are hired to spot, an easy victim and pick that person up and do away with him or her. Both males and females. It's not just young girls. And that's it's really sad. It's what I call it, the underbelly of the world. It's pretty ugly at this point. And if there's anything that could be done, I would think the leaders would want to deal with that. But I don't see the leadership addressing that much at all. And just before we got on tonight, I read just a small snippet of what Trump and Putin had agreed to. And Putin had agreed to let the US and NATO give Ukraine NATO-like, I think it's called Article 5-like protection. The protection offered in Article 5 is, you attack Ukraine, we attack, our whole group attacks you. So it maintains, it basically says, we're not going to bring these guys into NATO or into whatever they were trying to get into the UN. But we're going to give them NATO-like protection, which is the same thing. How do you stop that trafficking if you don't really, if you can't really, I don't see how that's going to help. Ukraine is the trafficking capital of the world. It's the adrenochrome capital of the world. It is the money laundering capital of the world. So I was looking at that thinking, I don't think that's a good deal for Ukraine, and therefore a good deal has to be a good deal for all, or it's not a good deal for anybody. And if they're still protected, what, how are we going to clean anything up? So it's not
Well,
good.
aren't we dealing with the people who are in the network? Well, the people making these decisions are the ones doing it.
Well, yeah, everybody up top has at least a finger or a toe, or at least knows. And they will often look the other way, is how I tend to see it. Some of them are directly involved. There's some things that I have seen and heard about specific individuals and thought, if I had that kind of weight on my mind, on my soul, I think I would collapse. And they just keep right on keeping on, like they're Mr. Innocent, never did a wrong thing ever in their life. And so we have a ways to go yet before we can clean up. And actually what I've seen is that people are so tired of the whole thing that they abandon the everyday 3D humans and say, I'm moving up. I can't or don't want to have my energy and my mind and my focus involved in that. And they will make an effort to move up and into 4D, higher consciousness, even 5D, so that they don't have to deal with that, so that it's even less a part of their reality. So we are not, I don't know, we're not facing it.
Okay, so there's two things that come to mind to me. The first is that, Massey has a bill.
Yeah.
It's going to be going in front of the House and the Senate, correct?
Right.
Voting on releasing the Epstein files. And
Yeah.
my point is, so you're going to ask the people in the Epstein files to vote on whether to release the Epstein files.
I know. It's kind of like, duh.
How does that even make any sense? Or is it that we see who votes yes and who votes no, and they out themselves?
Well, they don't. A lot of them have already been caught, have been confronted, have made deals saying, we'll tell you who we were dealing with, who was involved, et cetera, any kind of emails or photos or whatever that they may have had sent to them. They would, I don't know if they would have been smart enough to destroy those immediately, but I would have been if it would have been me. But they have already made deals to cooperate. So that's one of the things I pointed out in the look-see. A lot of that foot dragging around the Epstein files is because there's a lot of people that have already reversed course, and they are working with the what do you call them? The good guys, the white hats, the people trying to clean things up. And the question is, can we save those who have helped us get further along with this cleanup from the terrible reaction of the population if the population knew that they got caught in that kind of thing? And some of them really were not. They weren't that way. They didn't have that pedophilia kind of mindset. They didn't have that. They didn't have any of that. They went to Epstein Islands. A few of them got drugged, and then photos were taken that made them look very compromised, and they really weren't. They weren't even there participating because they were out of it. But when the pictures are a little bit blurry and you can't quite see details and you don't know what led up to that, then they're hooked. Their attitude would be, who's going to believe me with this kind of photo?
And particularly with all the emotional energy that's behind.
That's right.
It's a witch hunt at this point.
Right. It is.
And rightfully so.
Yes, absolutely. So when you think about the dilemma of the people who are saying, I eventually came to the conclusion, look, it was really wonderful of you to help catch a few more of these people and show how they work, but maybe we can't save you from the public knowing what happened. If the Epstein files are released and your name or your picture comes out, a few people might forgive, but I don't know about the rest. So we're seeing a lot of foot dragging. There's a lot of, I think they're waiting like for the JFK files. They haven't released hardly anything about the JFK files, a few things. But that whole thing is they're waiting for all the people that were involved to die so that they can let it out without anybody suffering recriminations or accusations or suffering for what they did, what they participated in.
Okay, so that leads me right into what you said a few minutes ago about some people are phasing out of 3D and going up
That's right.
in order to not have to deal with it.
Yeah,
And
have to face it.
I can see myself choosing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Because this almost seems like it's a perpetuating, unfixable mess. And I don't want to deal with it. That it doesn't enhance me. It doesn't enhance my experience. It doesn't enhance my energy field. So
Right.
where do we, Penny, how do we make the decision about this is a wrong, if we can, label it, there's no right or wrong. This is not this behavior.
Not what I want.
This behavior on the planet is not good for a healthy civilization. You can't have a healthy civilization when it's being run by this behavior. Right. So where do we make the decision between being helpful to improve a situation and being helpful to ourselves?
So a couple of things I would say. First, yeah, that's a hard decision. I want to share a scenario that I ran into, I'm going to say way back at the beginning of Kundalini, that exact same question. And the answer that came was, if you want to stay engaged at 3D, you can stay and try to fix that, but you're probably not going to have much effect. And the reason is because there aren't enough of you that can gather and make a difference. So it's onesie twosies that elect to just let go. And the scenario at the time that I was dealing with was a warlike situation, and it was totally unjust. And I thought, well, we can't just quit. We can't just give up. We can't just walk away. And my guides at the time, my teachers, were like, why not? And I was like, well, because then we lose. They said, what do you lose? You lose a whole bunch of grief. But what do you gain? You gain peace of mind. You gain a whole different reality. You gain the opportunity to demonstrate, like, to others, this can't be fixed the way we're trying to fix it. And they said, you don't know how to fix it. And you can't fix it until everybody moves to 4D and you start to raise your people differently. Yeah. It starts at the beginning of life. You can't fix the war when they're 30 and 40 and 50 and 60-year-old, aggressors. And I was really uncomfortable with that. But it drove home the point that at some point you have to pull away into a higher consciousness and work towards something that's beautiful. There are people, so that brings me to the second part of what I would say. There are people who come in, who reincarnate from 4D and 5D back down to 3D because they have a specific thing that they want to accomplish that will help somebody, that will rescue somebody, et cetera, et cetera. And so all of that decision is very personal. And so people come in. I think that's how Max got here. She came back in, let me go through this, let me see how this works, and by God, I'm going to fix as many things as I can. And it's amazing the impact that she has had. And, I've talked with Kathy O'Brien and a few other, probably she had a seminar maybe a year ago, December, in which we all gathered, and these were all people except for me who had come through exactly what Max had been through. And they survived, and they were putting themselves back together. They were making incredibly powerful decisions about consciousness. And I didn't say anything at the time, but I thought that's what's going to make the difference. That really is something that when you get into a 4D, 5D scenario, and you're there, in your group, you're ahead of others in your group. You have a chance to set things in place, in motion, and to set up a few, I'll call them rules, traditions, norms would probably be the best word. And that then restricts some people who come in bringing, dragging a little bit of their 3D ideas with them. But you end up dealing with that, and it's a whole different level of, let's say that they come in with the idea that I can have a kid anytime I want, I can have sex anytime I want, it can be unprotected. If I have a baby, I'll take care of it. I'll do the best I can. That's not the right attitude for raising a fully developed, powerful human being. And 4D and 5D and above, they have the way that we give birth and raise children or don't, that is something that is of a huge grief. It's like that's where the work has to happen. Yes, you can rescue some people, but the work has to be in how you see yourselves, how you raise your children, and the commitment to unfolding the whole person into a beautiful, powerful individual. So, it's not an easy decision to turn your back and walk away. But according to my people on the other side and elsewhere, that is the wisest decision. So,
after your conversation with JC last night, and you had talked about your training before you incarnated.
Oh, yeah.
And the part that I want to focus on right now is you having to integrate the limitations of the way that we interact and communicate on this planet.
I know.
So there's no telepathy, there's no things manifest really slow, or at least, over the course of your lifetime, in my lifetime, very, very slowly, speeding up now. And it almost I was left to wonder that there is such a limited group of abilities or frequencies that we have available, particularly over the course of our lifetimes.
2 3D people?
Yes. In other words, just so very, very few skills that you took for granted. You said it, I just always took for granted that societies were telepathic, that they understood that the universe was working in their favor.
Yeah. They had common goals. They worked together.
Yes.
I could not imagine. I could not.
So it makes me wonder, why on earth would any of us come here? It's like having both arms and one leg tied behind your back, and you're hopping up and down on nails, and you're supposed to somehow.
Not that bad. I mean, it's rough, but people come here because they want to force a core change. And the average life expectancy here, now it's up to 70, but, back in in 1940, 45, the life expectancy was 44 years for men, 48 for women. And so it was a quick trip, just a quick trip, and you'd have a boom, core change. Something would happen that would force you to understand yourself and your capacities differently. Now we're living much longer, and we're starting to have to live with the SHIT that we create. We're in it to the eyeballs, and that it's a group when you start living to be in your 70s and 80s, now you're living to half of your true life expectancy, and you're starting to reap the results of your own decisions. You're starting to live long enough to have to contemplate, gee, maybe I should have done that differently. All sorts of things, very, very different and very painful and very short-sighted. And one of the things about coming here is sometimes people in other areas, other dimensions of living, life unfolds very, very quickly. And there's, how do I say this? So let's back up a step. Time is a factor, is derived as a factor that's based on the capacity of the human brain to perceive a change in frequency set. And so you get, somebody, let's say somebody's yelling at you and cursing you and calling you names, etc. And on a dime, they change and say, oh, I'm sorry, I had the wrong person. I didn't realize it was you. I love you. Thank you. You're beautiful. You're wonderful. That kind of, the shock of listening to somebody accuse you of all these ugly things and then have them just, in the space of one breath, change to, oh, I'm sorry. That wasn't you. There's a shock value. There's a lag in perception that we have to go through. And when the perception changes that drastically, that dramatically, there's a lag time while we question, are you telling the truth? Who were you after? Who did you think you were yelling at? All those kinds of questions. And so time moves according to the rate of comfort at which we can shift perception. Okay? So when you go elsewhere, time happens a lot faster because perception is boom, 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 boom. And
Excuse me, keep going. I've got to do a pet thing, but keep going. I'll be right back.
All right. So one of the things that we have to deal with is that we have this very slow perception, and things, sometimes people come here because they want to slow down. But in that slower perception, that slower rate of time, you get into something that's uncomfortable. And now it seems like, oh my God, this is taking forever to get better, to be better. And so that whole thing is one of the reasons why people come here. They want a core change. They want to slow down a little bit. They want the freedom that we have of free will, because when you go elsewhere, in a very high, we'll say a higher frequency world, you mind your manners and your P's and Q's very, very closely. And you don't say the things that people say here. You don't think the things that people think here. You don't do the things people do here, because a lot of it is destructive. A lot of it is hurtful. A lot of it goes nowhere because it comes back at you much faster than it does here. And so those are just 3 reasons why people come here. They want a core change, they want to slow down, and they want to, it's kind of like the Wild West of consciousness. They want to be able to shoot from the hip and see what happens. And they do. And then when things change so slowly, and they've created a bunch of crap, there they are sitting in that crap. So we do have, it's a wonderful reality. It's a beautiful place. And most of the people that are here right now, I'm going to say probably 80% of them are aware at some level that there's going to be a huge change. And that's going to drive that consciousness into the higher realms. It'll be a little bit of a frantic move for some people, but they don't care. They want that kick in the butt that moves them up. So, yeah, there's all kinds of reasons why people go to various places. So that makes sense.
How much of that Wild West almost the word mannerless comes up, or impulsive. I mean,
Oh yeah,
there's just a lot of bad behavior on this planet.
I
A lot.
call it thoughtless. Absolute zero thought behind it. What are you creating? Do you know how powerful you are? Every time you open your mouth, you create more crap.
No, most of us don't know how powerful we are. And as a matter of fact, what I say to myself over and over daily is, how powerful am I? How powerful am I?
Watch out.
Waiting
Okay.
for it, waiting for the next thing, waiting for the next thing. And
Right.
Okay, I'll finish this thought and then I want to ask a question about consciousness in Earth humans.
Okay.
So my curiosity is, we have been subjected to a takeover on this planet repeatedly, and that takeover relies greatly on bad behavior from humans.
Right.
And so how much of this poor choices, thoughtless behavior is a result of the programming that we're exposed to from the minute we're born?
Well, about 100%. So,
See, it's like, okay, so then we get back to the
you're
whole
just proving the point I just made. We do not rate, you don't try to fix the war, you fix the human at the birth.
Right. And I see so clearly now. I can remember when we first started talking, you and I, and we were talking about children, and while you were talking, I was thinking about my own daughters.
Yeah.
And you said and I think, Penny, you might have said, by time they're 9 or 10, it's too late if they haven't been
That's right.
raised correctly. And it was devastating for me because my daughters were older than that. But now I see your point. Everything from the first 48 hours after birth, and the way they're birthed, and the massaging. I mean, it's like by the time they're 8 or 9, it's too late if you haven't.
Right.
So how does a civilization like the one on planet Earth start fixing it when we are controlled by a system that relies on us behaving poorly for it to continue?
So there are what I'm going to call it reset points. It's a bad choice of words given the reset that they keep trying to shove down our throat. But there are reset points in the human brain, in the human psyche, that occur around the age of 13, 14 years of age. There's another reset point around around 29 for men and 31 for women. And there might be another one in there in the middle, but a lot of people miss that altogether. 23 for men. Men, if boys have been totally out of control, and bad boys up until they're about 22, about 23, they start to shift all on their own. And it gives, the poor mothers and fathers hope that, okay, we're kind of going in the right direction. And that by 29, there's another big reset. So there are reset points that with the right information and the right influence and encouragement, the person can make a total change. It's always going to be remedial, which means that it's harder to make that change than it would have been if they had done that naturally at the change points between birth and say 9 or 10. But at 7 is, I think the Buddhists or the Hindus say by 7 it's too late. But the reset points, we haven't done our homework in understanding the psyche in terms of consciousness. And when you have, let me give you an example. So you have this little baby that's born, and all of a sudden at 14, the females grow breasts, everybody grows hair, they get armpit hair, they get hair down below, the voice changes, the skin changes, all of a sudden they're capable of reproducing. What is that? I mean, that is so obviously a reset point in the physical, but it's matched by the reset in the consciousness. All of the consciousness and the hormones and the chemistry changes. It changes again if you give birth somewhere in your 20s. Women change before men do. But men they're no slouch. They fall in love with that little infant. That changes them. And so then there are other reset points. Another one around 51, 52, 53 years of age. That's another reset point. That's the point at which you decide, okay, I'm giving up, or I need to regenerate myself because, man, I'm getting older. And most people just say, I'm getting old. Yeah, and there's no need. Getting old is a decision. It's not something that can't be countered or mitigated to a huge extent. And some people learn how to mitigate that altogether, and they don't grow any older. They get to middle age and they just stop growing older. They grow older chronologically, but they don't die. So those are we need to learn what is the human capable of, and that then changes the reality to some extent. We could, at the very least, birth our children a lot differently. It would make such a huge difference.
Yes.
In one generation, I'm going to say probably 50% of the grief and misery would be gone. And in 2 generations, it would be gone.
And the consciousness that would come with those changes would go a long way towards shifting what's happening on the planet.
Oh my gosh. I can't count how many young people begin hearing voices at 15, 16 years of age. That's part of the reset that we don't pay any attention to, or we say, oh, you're having psychotic experiences, you need to take a drug. So we ruin the young people.
Make sure they're good and medicated so they don't hear those voices anymore.
Yeah, I know. Geez. So
okay. Go ahead.
I think that, if we wanted to make a big difference, you have to make some tough choices. So back to your question about, it wasn't even a question, it was a statement. I'm getting to the point you said of, I just want to get up into a higher consciousness, and I don't want to engage with all that stuff. That's called choosing an alignment. And that's one of the things the little men in brown robes just focused on again and again. And they said, if you want to align with death, you don't have to do anything different because you're already aligned with death. If you want to align with life, then you have to begin choosing life. And that's a huge commitment. So, and you've probably heard me say, when everything you do nurtures life, you'll have eternal life. That's the way it works. You'd have to choose a commitment, an alignment, and then you commit to that, and then you start figuring out, okay, how does that talk? How does that behave? How does that think? How does that work, how does that spend its money? How does that spend its time? What does that kind of commitment pay attention to, give energy to, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a learning period.
Yeah, I wonder about that because, and I'm sure that people watching there's a lot of people experiencing the same thing. It's like I can't even listen to almost any politician anymore. It's like,
Yeah,
and it's not that I get angry. I don't. I just am not interested.
I know. I've had to really work to pay attention to what's happening in that world, because part of the work that I do is to listen and then interpret and then say, here are some ways to think about this. Here are some things to know about this kind of consciousness, etc. And so that's part of the work I do. But it was fascinating for a while, and now it's work. It's not so fascinating. And my thrill, if you will, is where are we going?
Yeah.
What's next? What
Yeah.
does that look like? And yeah, that's a whole different kind of energy.
I see people that I wouldn't expect becoming more creative.
Oh gosh, yeah. Aren't they? Why would you not expect it? Is it the individual, or is it just the time? The timing?
I think that it's surprising to me that people who did not have a creative spark or interest now
Oh,
all
yeah.
of a sudden are doing fabric art, or they're painting, or they're crafting something in their backyard, or there's almost this desire or this
I know.
hidden drive to create. And there's a part of me that wonders, my perception is that Earth humans are creative beings.
We are.
We love to create. That's when we're
Yeah.
on fire with energy
Yes.
and passion. And it's really been squashed with the systems. I
I
mean,
know.
and Penny, for me, you know how you'll see in a movie, a book, pages will go flying, flying, flying by.
Yeah.
It's a visual they use that, time is going by.
Right. That's right.
That to me is my perception, because every day now I'm noticing yet another program that was instilled in us
Oh.
to dampen our spirit,
Mm-hmm.
to create a negative bias, to discourage us. And they're little things, but it's like every day, and the pages are flying, flying by. In other words, the whole narrative, at least for me, and I'm sure a lot of other people, is just dissolving. It's like melting away.
Yeah. I think you remind me of something I read or saw or listened to. I can't remember what. It might have been Terence McKenna, but I don't think so. But the talk was up until, I don't know, maybe the 1960s or 70s. All of the movies that came out of Hollywood had these love stories. The good guys always win.
Gidget on the beach.
There you go. Yeah, all good endings. Kind of, kind of a warm your heart kind of movies. And then all of a sudden, the whole thing changed, and now all the programming is different. It's dystopian, and that has deeply, deeply affected that. Plus the music. Some of the music that they say is music I listened to in the 70s and 80s, thinking, what kind of noise is that? Nothing, nothing about it struck me as music. But some kids liked it. They loved it. They thought it was great. I'm like, okay. But now the Hollywood thing has begun to fall apart. And the movies that are being successful aren't the great big expensive to make blockbusters. They're these, made by a crew of 3 or 4 that are working on a shoestring, and they have an incredible audience that listens and watches and says, "Oh my God, that was wonderful." So we have had this programming, and once Hollywood began to come apart, and it started probably in 2020, really seriously. And I don't know if it got to, I don't think it's done coming apart yet, but there were a few suicides that were really blatantly not suicides.
You mean Anne Hesh?
Yeah. Oh my God. Did you see that?
Well, when somebody sits up in the gurney when they have the sheet pulled over their head, that's kind
I
of
know, and tries to get away. Yeah. And Cappy, that kid who was known as Cappy, that really began to break Hollywood apart. And now some of that programming, those programs you're talking about, are beginning to shift a little bit. And I think that is so important. It can't shift fast enough, if you ask me. And there's programming in education that happens as well. I hear people talking about getting beyond what they learned in school. I think is it Aristotle who said, you only need to teach 4 things: music, art, and 2 other things. I forget but they were all creative, because we are incredibly creative. And he said, if you teach those and you teach them well, then all of the sciences will follow naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't. Yeah.
So last night, in the conversation with JC, again, if you guys didn't see it, it's worth it. It's really worth the watch. You had talked about, well, there was a conversation about psychotropics, or like mushrooms, or those sort of things.
Right.
And somebody posted a comment that says, "I'm too much of a sissy to do that."
I saw that.
I'm in that camp. It's like my brain already is on steroids. If I did that, I don't think I'd ever come back.
You probably would, but
here's my question to you. And you were talking about the concept of this is a cooperative universe.
Yes.
And so many thoughts came to my mind after you made that statement. The first being that there's probably 90% of the humans on this planet who that concept is foreign to, because we have been taught that life is hard, the world is a cruel place, more programming. So the thought that the universe is cooperative, and I know for you, that's probably a given. For other people, me included, it's not a given. And the way, for some reason last night when you said it, I heard it differently.
Oh.
And then you said, or somebody brought up little men, putting a finger on the pineal gland.
Right.
And all of a sudden the human wakes up.
Yeah.
So I have been thinking ever since then, Penny, what are the limits of what we can ask for and manifest? And why couldn't I or any human say, somebody put their finger right here and give me,
you can.
give me I want to see the whole picture. And if you can't give me the whole book, give me a chapter.
Yeah.
Give me one here and one the next. And then, so you don't blow out all my jets, fry me.
Yeah.
So I guess my overarching question to you is, what are the limits, or are there limits about what we can ask for and clearly expect to receive?
There's no limits. You can ask for everything, and in fact, you should. You will get what you're ready for. And so when you ask, you're supposed to say, and I'm willing to do the work to be ready. And I'm gonna say this. I have witnessed people coming and, putting their finger or their hands, you know.
Like you've seen an off-planet energy come in and do that.
Yeah, I have, and not just off planet. Okay, I'm thinking about my grandson when he was 2, and he got encephalitis, and he was in the hospital, and his temperature was 106, headed toward 107, and that's when my daughter called me from Germany, frantically saying, help, help, he's going to be he's going to be a vegetable. They can't stop the fever. And so, I was just very motherly. Well, here's what we need to do. You sit down and you imagine that he's got a little sun in his belly button, and you just see that sun grow until it encompasses the whole body. In the meantime, I'm going to call all of the aunts. We have a lot of women in our family who are very Christian. And I'm going to ask them to pray. And so she hung up, we hung up, and I started dialing. Then I called all 9 of my aunts and said, Craig is in the hospital. He's got encephalitis. They think he's going to die. Pray. Get on the phone. Get on your knees. Call Jesus. Call somebody. And I'll call you back when I get some further news. Click. And so over and over I did that. And then when I got all done, I sat down. It probably took me about, I'm going to say, 5 or 6 minutes to make all of those calls. And I sat down and thought, okay, out of the body, over to Germany, into the hospital room. He's in the crib. There's 2 doctors hanging over him, just desperate to do something. And in walks some guy that I can only call Jesus, robes and all. And he walked over to the crib. He leaned over. He was right across from me. And he just did this. And then he looked right in my eyes and said, he'll be okay now. And he turned around and walked out. And I was like, I was nothing but a giant goosebump. I couldn't believe what I had just seen, because I was not believing in Jesus at all at that point. And so there he was. And there he went. And Kelly called me about 20 minutes later and said, Mom, he's okay. The doctors are freaking out. They don't know. They're going to keep him because they don't know what happened, why he's all of a sudden he's all better. And that was one of the first miracles that I ever saw, in which, somebody, did something with their hands. But later, I have also seen some ETs who very quietly, almost unobtrusively, will rub their hand along somebody's shoulder or somebody's arm or wherever the pain is, and it just goes away. And I finally asked, what are you doing? Why does that work so well for you? And they said, no, it doesn't work for us. It works for you guys, for whoever is sick. And I said, but why? What are you doing? And they said, we're just restoring the original energies. And it's a way of reminding that frequency, of changing the frequencies in that part of the body. And I said, but how is it you're doing that? And they said, well, when you get into higher states of consciousness, you accumulate power, you accumulate energy that you can direct. And you can direct it in all sorts of ways, with your hands, with your mind, with your mouth. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to try that. And it has worked amazingly well. So
when you say you accumulate energy, is this excess energy that you're holding in your field?
It's not excess energy. They become a different kind of energy. They become a higher form of energy. Okay? So somebody's asking, how do we activate more of our DNA strands? That's a distraction. Your DNA doesn't, I don't want to take away from anybody who's out there teaching about the DNA strands. Your DNA changes constantly. And that whole thing, I think, serves to make people feel like they're less than, or they're missing something. They're not missing anything. They're only missing the practice the ideas of how to make things work, how to try things, just try things. You don't know who's hanging over your shoulder, who might help your energy make something happen. Just try stuff, and your DNA will adjust automatically, but it isn't going to adjust out of the blue, and then you'll be able to do stuff. You do stuff, and that changes the DNA. So I've now seen that kind of thing, I don't know, lots of times, and in human beings who become healers, even in myself, making some things happen that I was like, oh, okay, all right. Let me not argue with that, or let me not act like I'm shocked at what happened, because I didn't feel like it was me. It was some sort of energy that moved through me. So we just need to try stuff. We just need to begin the practice. And that's what I call it, the practice. So.
My wheels are turning.
Okay, good.
Yeah. The reason I say that is I'm fascinated right now with the potential of what the humans on this earth right now, even though they may not have the physical health that they wish they had, or they've been really, really traumatized because of this planet. So clearly we're coming in not being as, I don't know, vital as we could be on lots of levels.
Right. Yeah.
But now I'm fascinated with the potential of what we could do, even though we're starting in a place that maybe not be as optimal as it could be.
So what? I mean, nothing is ever optimal. You start where you're at and you just keep going, and you learn as you go. You don't figure it out and then go do it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you'd make something happen out of either desperation or because you're really curious or you're willful or whatever. And then you realize, oh, that worked. And don't undo it, with your confusion or your doubt. Just say, wow, thank you. I wasn't expecting that, but I feel really good about having witnessed that or been part of that, or, been given that gift, whatever it was. The potential, back to that, it's unlimited. We are not limited except by our own consciousness. And that is one of the things that my people have, I'm going to use the word harped on me about, but they don't harp ever. They just repeat again and again. It's about consciousness. Use that consciousness. You have to think differently. You have to be different in your gut. And once you start making that effort, it'll come about, and it does. And it isn't overnight, but sometimes when the overnight things happen, the shock is almost too much for us. So it's good to be gentle and slow. So.
Let's talk about the role of emotions in the human experience. And one thing that I have noticed, I have been an emotional person all my life. I've never had a hard time feeling emotion.
Yeah,
but my emotions lately, the depth of them and the complexity of them and the intensity of them is it's like I almost have to like turn it down because I can't contain it.
It's power. That's power.
So why and when I'm thinking about changes or things I'd like to see, my ability to feel the energy is like 5,000% more than it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Why do emotions drive results on this plane? What's the mechanism behind that?
Okay, so now you're getting into the nature of the human and how we come to be out of the soup. Okay, so we have this soup that is full of frequencies, and then we have an individual that eventually takes shape within that soup. Emotion is the feeling caused by the movement of those frequencies, the shifting of those frequencies. Every single one of those frequencies carries information and feeling, produces feeling. So, if, for example, let's say that you're in the garden and you're picking corn or you're picking beans or something, and a spider crawls up your leg and bites you, okay? You'll feel the motion of that spider maybe before it bites you. If it bites you, you'll feel the bite and it'll itch, and burn, etc. But what you're actually feeling is the motion of some other set of frequencies. And it could be like if you were walking through an old attic and you ran into a bunch of cobwebs that you didn't even see, you would feel those. We feel frequencies. They have taken other shapes, other forms, and when they move, if it's the wind blowing a tree or a branch, if it's, watching some animals play, two puppies play or whatever, you are really watching frequencies in motion, and the kind of motion generates a feeling because you identify with those, whatever you're watching, whatever you run into. You do not identify with a spider, so you're liable to get upset. If the puppies were a puppy and a cougar eating the puppy, you wouldn't have the same feeling as you would get from two puppies playing. And so those are kind of exaggerated examples, but when frequency sets within the body shift and you have movement along, I'll call it a meridian, one of the energy channels, you'll feel that often as an itch. If it's moving along and it hits a block, I need to scratch that. When you scratch it, it facilitates the continued movement or motion of that energy moving through that meridian. So emotion is feeling, and we then take those feelings and we give it all sorts of names and all sorts of scenarios. We decide that this kind of situation causes me to feel this. This over here causes me to feel that. And so we end up taking very simple movement of frequencies, movement of energy, because frequencies are energy. We give it names, and then we look at group frequencies and we give those a meaning. We label those with meaning. The face of somebody your childhood friend who beat you up every other week is probably going to cause one kind of memory. Your first lover is going to cause another kind of emotion and feeling. So that's what emotion is. It's the movement of frequencies. Okay, so let's say that's the base we're trying to get to. So now when you want something to happen, and I often say this to my students, you have to see something, you have to feel it, you have to hear it, you have to say it, and you have to do it all at the same time. And when that happens spontaneously, there's a huge amount of power in that. It's just you moving power, boom. When you think about that and it's more controlled, I'm going to say it loses probably 90% of its power. And we aren't good at monitoring how much power we're using, and how much power we just aren't. Okay, So when you want something to happen and you want to manifest something, you have to see it, hear it, feel it, smell it, taste it. You have to act as if it's there, and you have to feel the gratitude that it is there. And all of that, when you keep pouring that into the soup around you, that soup begins to change. And then once it hits a certain tipping point, you get to an attraction. You get the attraction of whatever it is you're trying to make happen begins to move towards you. And that's something that is really, that's something that people don't generally, they aren't aware of. The most powerful things that you emit are spontaneous thoughts about something or someone. And it's usually when you're half daydreaming. Mm-hmm. So there's no, we don't get anywhere. We don't sit down and really try to feel our way through a meditation. We try to squash all feeling and movement and motion until we're just in this bliss. But when you want something to happen, you have to feel it. And it's emotion that when you emit that emotion, it pushes other frequencies in a particular way, and they respond because the universe is cooperative.
So when you have that emotion, does it draw other like frequencies to it?
Yep. And when that emotion is loaded with whatever thought you attach to it, you know, I want an ice cream cone, you know, or let me use another example that I just used recently. I have some cups in my kitchen and they're just sitting on the cupboard, okay? And they're in the way. And there's maybe 6 or 7 of them. And I thought, you know, I need some cup hooks. I'm going to get some cup hooks and put that in the bottom of the cupboard and hang those cups up. About 2 days later, somebody came in and said, hey, I got these cup hooks. Do you want these? I was going to throw them away. And I was like, yeah. And so that was like, thank you. That's a small example.
Okay, so I have noticed that exactly that type of scenario in my life.
Yeah.
What I've also noticed is that if it's a spontaneous thought, like I need cup hooks, and then I just move on to the next thing, and it happens faster.
That's right.
Than if I keep bringing it up. Why? What is the mechanism behind that?
Because the first time you have that spontaneous thing, that's all you need. That's all you need. The next time, the action is as if you do not have those yet, as if it's not coming to you. Does that make sense? Do you get that?
And so that blocks it?
Yeah, it slows it down. It slows it down. If it doesn't come to you, most people, like I didn't say a time limit for my cup hooks. I was like,
and you probably just thought about it and moved on.
Yeah, I did. I moved all the cups and you know, that's another thing. Movement at the same time that you are feeling, thinking, feeling. We feel and then we think. Thinking is a huge watering down of feeling. And so when you we can't go through life being these, you know, like 2-year-olds acting out and having tantrums over everything. But when you can allow spontaneous, I really need that. It's going to come to you. It's going to be there. And if you want to put a time frame on it, you can do that and say, if I don't have the cup hooks, which I did not do, if I don't have the cup hooks within a week, I'll go to the hardware store and I'll get some cup hooks. And so a time frame helps, because you can then say after a week, I didn't get any cup hooks. I guess I'm going to the hardware store. So now you are the one manifesting your own wish through your own action. And we discount that. What if you couldn't drive? Or what if you were blind? Or what if you didn't have a car and the hardware store was 7 miles away? And that's a day's journey to get to the hardware store and back again with couples. Then we don't give ourselves credit for manifesting what we want. We think it should just appear magically, and we don't admit how magical we are. So there's a lot of disillusionment. And so I often say to people, make it happen. Go do it. Don't just stand there and give orders. Go do it. And it's in the doing that you begin to understand that whole process of what is manifestation. You are a manifester from the get-go. So just do it. And when it's something that seems like it's too much or too out of reach or too, what was the word you use? You have too many mental limits on what you should be asking for, ask for it anyway.
Yeah.
We're meant to have what we need, what we want. When we ask for something that will result in bad results down the road, we often will not get it. If we insist on getting it, on making it happen, sometimes we pay a big price.
Why couldn't we use this same principle to address the issues on the planet?
We can. We
There's
should.
just not enough of us?
There's not, I don't think there's enough. And when you have desperate people, they shield everything. They don't want to hear, they don't want to know, they don't want to be affected. Desperation and guilt are huge blocks, huge, unfortunately. And those people who engage in those kinds of things, they don't want to get caught. And any kind of admission that they're doing that and they should stop. I mean, if they stop it, they have to admit they're doing it first. And so they can't get beyond that guilt.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
We're novices. I love the fact that in just the last, I'm going to say 10 years, I've been able to talk about consciousness in lots of different ways. And I understand the basic mechanisms, a lot of them. There's a lot more that I'm sure I don't understand. But those basic mechanisms they have proven themselves to be correct again and again and again. And that, I think, is the task that we have in front of us, is understanding consciousness.
Yeah.
It's not what people think. So.
And what comes up for me based on what you've said and shared is just start messing around with it.
Yes. And have fun.
And see what happens. And
I know.
Because the energies are so different on the planet right now, it's so easy to feel that bubbliness, that excitement, that, ooh, I'm going in the right direction. It's almost like a little scavenger hunt. Like when I put my energy over here, not so much, but when I put it here, oh yeah, that feels really good.
Right. It does. And that idea of really playing around, I remember when I was first starting out, this was like 1980, 81, one of the things my teacher had one of the students do that, and I think, and I can't remember what the issue was, but the task was she had to say that this thing was true. She would accept that this was true about consciousness if she saw a pink Cadillac in the next week. And by God, she saw 2 of them in the next week. And she was so like, oh my God. And for her to see 2 of them, she thought that was the most unlikely thing she would ever see, was a pink Cadillac in her town. And there it was. and I guess it was a Mary Kay thing. It was a Mary Kay Cadillac.
It was.
But she had never seen a pink Cadillac before, and there's two. She saw one twice. Maybe it was the same one twice, but I was like, okay, all right, that's how consciousness works.
Yeah.
I accept it. So,
yeah. Well, what else would you like to leave us with? We're about an hour and a half in, and I know that talking about the contrast of what we're moving into, the excitement versus the frustration, the anticipation versus the disappointment. I mean, we're going to be in that, and it's almost like a hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold
right
experience right now.
Yeah. And in the body, hot and cold is a mechanical driver. And I think that that's what those feelings are about. When you can't get, whoops, I was going to say, when you can't get off the pot, the mechanical drivers will force you into a position. Cold takes you this way, hot takes you that way. Worry takes you this way, hope takes you that way, back and forth, etc. And eventually, I think people will get like to where you're at, which is, I just don't care anymore. I don't
care about that. I want to go over there.
That's right.
That's more, that feels fun over there.
That's right. Because we are naturally creators.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you want to go over there because you can see a chance to create. So
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And
that's why I came here, because I was too much of a screw off.
Okay. Okay. Were you a sassy girl? Oh my.
Well, I think that I keep getting the sense that I needed to get a little serious, like I was just always screwing around and being a smart
you should go back and get some of that.
I've got a lot of it.
Yeah. Okay.
I honestly do. I know I'm always a little more serious with you, but I've got a lot of it.
Okay. So don't let all of those opposing things make you think you have to choose a side. Just walk down the middle and keep your eye on where you're going. You're not going into total worry. You're going somewhere else. And you got to have a little bit of hope to get there, but you have to have some mystery. And so the thing that I want people to understand is that when you get into this place of mastery, you begin to accept the mystery, and that mystery imbues everything that you do. It's like a little secret appreciation. So,
yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you felt the shift, the kind of shift with?
Yeah, I have. I wrote about it in the Look-See. I said, hey guys, we're passing the tipping point, and we're tipping in the right direction. I was like, oh my God. It's a good shift. It's a shift into feeling renewed, restored, a little bit of regeneration. That is so important. Never think that that's the last time you'll ever have to deal with the challenges of life. But use those periods where things look good and they're looking up and people are moving in the right direction. Use those to restore yourself and gather energy for the next time when it's a little bit rough. So, because life goes up and down,
This one, that's for sure.
Yeah. And we're on a roller coaster ride. I think I said that at the end of the Look-See. So hang on and ride and, feel those thrills. So, yeah.
Well, thank you again for your time and all your wisdom.
Yeah. Thank you for everybody out there. Thank you for listening. Thank you for just being there and rolling forward, even though, the mystery might be too big to get your mind around right now. Yeah, it's okay to not know where we're going and yet just feel like, okay, I'm ready, bring it.
I keep saying, hold the line. I'm here to hold the line.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Hold the line. Okay. We'll call it good for tonight.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. So appreciate you, and hold the line out there. We're gonna create something new and fun.
I'm going to say, make your own line. Okay.
Yeah.
And hang on.
Okay.
Okay.